To grasp the seriousness of this story, you have to take a look at this first. This is year-on-year Apex Legends players. They're now at an all-time low, but actually if you zoom the chart out, it's even worse. That means that players are not coming back to this game. And not even Electronic Arts are happy. They've said as much in just about every recent earnings call. So in short, the vibes are turning on them. And I know vibes can be an overused, fluffy word, but actually, it's a word that's useful and it has stuck around for a reason. And that's why this video soared to 1 million views in no time. But that's just a number, and I know you're all desensitized to videos with lots of views, so here's some insider baseball for you. Assuming the hook and the thumbnail of a video are good enough, YouTube's success is often driven by total addressable market and confirmation bias. You see, old school clickbait literally doesn't work anymore. Which is to say that here, his Watson's video has tapped into the zeitgeist. He's an Apex creator, he's quitting, and when I take a look using my analytics software, I can see that this video, a serious talk about Apex Legends, is a 7.2x outlier on its channel. That means it's getting 7.2 times more views than average. And when you take a look at his recent Apex Legends videos, they're all significantly underperforming his average. What we see is an Apex creator whose general Apex content is actually not doing as well. But whenever he does a video like this, that is news that appeals to current and lapsed Apex players, well, then it can go really big. And that's why it being an outlier is newsworthy when combined with everything else that we know. So yes, he's announced he's quitting, and as much as the quote, "Why would anyone want to play Winter Express," which is the winter event, while Snoop Dogg is having a concert in Fortnite, which does just sound like alien speak to me. Well, I do get the point, I get it. Steam players are at an all-time low. EA's panicked attempt to make their line go up, the number line, backfired. And that means there's a reason why this video hit players so hard. But I'll one-up him and hit you even harder with today's sponsor. You're now a daily habit of mine. I wasted so much time doom-scrolling Twitter and Reddit, but now I use Brilliant, and I have an amazing deal for you. Brilliant makes learning fun and interactive, where you learn by doing across thousands of interactive lessons in math, data science, programming, and AI, all on their gorgeous site and app. And it's not rote learning. Their method is 6 times more than lecture videos, which, having been in lectures, I absolutely feel. You see, they use interactive quizzes, right? You can click, you can drag, you can build things, you learn via playing almost, and every chance they have, they make a fun tactile visualization, and that's what makes the concepts click. Now, in today's mad world, I cannot recommend their How LLMs Work course highly enough. In that, you'll learn how LLMs actually work, which is important because that tech is coming, and if you understand it, you'll be able to reap some of the benefits while mitigating the risks, and also, you can have fun learning. Brilliant is kind of like upgrading yourself. You can pick skills and you can learn them in a bite-sized, interactive, and approachable manner, all in the time you'd usually doom scroll in your phone. Cannot recommend them highly enough, so absolutely check them out at my link down below, brilliant.org/Bellular News. There, you'll get 30 days for free, and then you'll get 20% off the annual plan. Okay, so here's the deal. His Watson was in deep, rising from a casual player to a pro, and now he's uninstalled the game. And here are the main reasons. So first up, he's burnt out feeling because of a lack of meaningful new content for casual players and a lack of change for ranked players. Second, Respawn doesn't seem interested in catering to competitive players, and that's evidenced to him by inconsistent balance and matchmaking problems between seasons. Now, modders have actually tried to fix some problems here, but rather obviously Respawn are not interested in that, and Watson suggested they actually refuse to work with content creators who were highlighting said mods that they thought were moving the game in a better direction. That's rough, but also take a look at this for esports. This is a deal-making failure in 2023 surrounding rev share with esports orgs. Orgs who, of course, by now are less interested in Apex than ever, leading to whole orgs getting out of Apex and teams of players obviously being laid off. And the thing is that when a camel's back breaks, there does tend to be a straw. This time it appears the straw, among many, but the most recent one, is what they brought out for Christmas. Though Watson suggests that it's less what Respawn wanted and more what they were allowed. Watson cites insiders who spoke to him and suggested that they, internally, have got tons of ideas for game content, but that management will not let them deviate from set plans. That is interesting, and it certainly fits this story, but as always with sources and such, do take it with a pinch of salt. That's because the people who will reach out from within a company are usually the inner rebels. They're usually the people who are losing arguments. Now, often those could be arguments that, if we take a look at it, well, we'd agree with the people who are doing the leaking, but they may not have all the details, and the things they leak are generally true based on their knowledge, which may be out of date. But what we do know, rather solidly, is the release of their Christmas stuff backfired. So the sales pitch, right, for this season is the return of a 6-year-old launch mode and a rework to a day one character, which was then followed by the holiday event, which itself was a returning event from 5 years ago, which does mean a lot of remixes and not a lot of new. The second patch continues this then with one new hop-up that changes the charge rifle sniper to full auto, 2 character reworks, and an update for the throwback mode that adds in more maps. Now, I know he was making a joke, but I don't think that Snoop Dogg would be able to save this with a concert, but I do take the point. Fortnite has momentum, and in the game of hearts and minds, well, momentum and vibes matter. To explain this simply, Apex has always been a thrifty game. If the team finds something that works, they do tend to hold on to it. Take as an example the Christmas break event. Since 2020, Apex would add a new cosmetic event, a new Battle Royale map, and the Winter Express limited time mode. But then 2023 broke the trend with no new map. Now that's likely because every map was undergoing an overhaul at the time, and, well, there was no Winter Express. Suffice to say, people were not happy with that. And that's even with the devs' explanation that movesets and some of the newer legends could break the game. Now, when we fast forward to 2024, what we see is this. Respawn probably thinking the return of Winter Express would be an olive branch because it's what they didn't do last year. And that especially being the case because they added the first new weapon to the game in years. But that did not work. For some people, it also felt like there was no new map. I mean, there was no new map in the Christmas event, but there was one previously with E-District, which launched in August. That was timed with their business model update, which of course backfired so badly it made headlines. So yes, there was a new map, but it was torpedoed by business model decisions. Add to that the pent-up demand from an underwhelming 2023, and it's obvious why the vibes have truly turned on EA. But it's not just their actions, it's also the competition. Life ain't fair and business ain't fair. Even if development team sizes and budgets are not comparable in any way, all these games are fighting for the very same hours. Now, recent leaks show that Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War cost $700 million, which is, quite a lot. Not all of that went into Call of Duty Warzone, but I think you get the point. It's just a different level of scale to the one this game's operating on. And what makes it worse then is that the player relationship has been inconsistent. So going back to Watson, it's the perception that Respawn don't have a clear identity for the game, where from his perspective, a season may be great, but then it could be followed up with unpopular changes. It just doesn't seem like things are really dialed in. Casuals might get a mode that they enjoy, like the Post Malone designed 3 strikes. God, yeah, I'm feeling old. Anyway, but limited time modes are just limited time modes. Then there's modding. Enthusiasts want it, Apex doesn't, and at the very least, the mods just are there to tease people on the sorts of things they would love to see in the game. But even look at the most recent patch. It's a perfect microcosm of this. High-level movement tech like tap strafing was nerfed in the eyes of the community, and to them, that was hurting, sort of taking down the skill ceiling for one of the most unique features that Apex still has. Now, it actually turns out that was unintentional. They reverted it quickly, but immediately players did assume that this was Respawn making the game more generic. And I bring it up to evidence that there is no trust in these updates. And what makes it worse is that when there is innovation, it's often on how they want to get more money from you. Seriously, take a look through the in-game store, or even this video we did a while back. So losing a player base doesn't happen overnight. This built up over time, especially because until last summer, which was a dramatic time itself, it felt like long-standing and foundational game system problems were left to rot. All, of course, while competition consolidated. Now, work is getting done, and important work as well, like the Lifeline rework and overcoming whatever the hell blocked the Winter Express mode coming in 2023, but that doesn't look or feel new, and worst of all, Respawn lost the narrative, and they lost it right as their corporate overlords drew attention to the game's underperformance in earnings calls. And that is something that further cements the loser vibes that this game is steeped in. What audiences want is a big, vibrant, live game that they can depend on for their gaming time, and even if they're not a big fan of Snoop, well, hey, the fact that there's stuff going on in my game, Oh, it's an identity thing. Makes it feel like it's a good place to invest your time. Apex has not been able to do that. But there's a thing about Apex that most people don't know. Apex was never set up to be one of those games. Apex was a fluke. I think now more people are beginning to realize that. I don't say Apex was a fluke to shit in the devs. No, Apex Legends rather famously was an experiment. It was a prototype that was made essentially on the down low. And they ended up having a lot of fun internally, and they had to convince EA to back it. Now, their launch expectations of 1 million players were smashed in just 8 hours, and EA would go on to earn billions from a game that they were effectively tricked into publishing. Just kinda spicy. Soon after, Respawn leader Vince Zampella would actually move. He wouldn't move in a bad way per se. He moved to overseeing much of EA's largest and in most dire need of help franchises, like Battlefield, where he's basically leading efforts to, undestroy that franchise. So big picture, this game was a humongous success from what ultimately was a fairly thrifty, fast experiment that was inspired by PUBG and Fortnite. But of course, for the dev team, as the monkey's paw always does, it curls. Fortnite was able to pump out content insanely and then sort of solve that problem by becoming a user-generated content platform. PUBG was able to lock in its core audience through consistent iteration in the core, and then both games launched mobile versions to humongous success. Apex then has had a bit of an odd time, and it's simply not the case, I think, that Respawn phoned it in. I think they really have tried. I think they got caught in a deadly cycle because those limited time modes, the team deathmatch, etc., those are neat, those are headline generating, but they weren't followed up on, which probably tells us that they weren't retaining players, all while there were foundational issues with the game that they were struggling to get on top of. Evidently, EA were bearing down on them, wanting more and more money. And all of this means that Apex struggled with direction where its competitors kinda didn't. And you can add to that low-hanging fruit that was bizarrely just not grabbed. I think the biggest example for so many players is the game not having a proper solo queue mode. And that does mean that the solo experience of this game tends to be worse than the competition. Hell, even take mobile. EA killed the mobile Apex entry because its place as rank 6 highest grossing EA mobile game was simply not worth the effort, it seems. Like, come on guys, this is a pretty damn messy picture, and it probably didn't help as well that Apex Legends was built on a custom version of Valve's Source engine. Yeah, you may not know this, it's a Source game. I mean, heavily modified, but still, Source, like what's running, Counter-Strike and everything. And that means, right, less off-the-shelf solutions to common problems, fewer developers in the industry with domain-specific experience. That'll seriously hamper efforts to, scale up the team, and it probably didn't help that this ultimately is all in response to an experimental game that blew up more than anybody expected. Which is obviously not to say that this game is or was a failure. It made billions of dollars. That is a win. But EA have reported that the rate of return is slowing. That's bad for EA, but you actually may not know how bad it is for EA, and therefore how bad the pressure on these developers is. That's because something changed at the corporate level, something that most people are not aware of. EA Sports and EA Entertainment are now separate entities. They were split out, and that means that FIFA and Madden can't pad the numbers anymore. So if your name is Apex or The Sims, tough shit. In a world of Anthem, Battlefield, and other high-budget misses, you guys are stuck holding down the live service fort. That's why EA basically every quarter says, Apex isn't making enough money. And that's why we see the Buster Sword gacha drama. That's why we see the store being absurd in the way that it is now. It's why we see the split battle pass plan that was one of the most transparent money me now things we've seen from a company. So it's obvious the players feel the pinch, but I feel for the devs as well. The conditions can't be good. The pressure can't be good. The bad type of corporate pressure. And what Watson suggests of the developers having two things, ideas, but corporately clipped wings, well, that does fit, even though they're probably trying. So to that end, here's the plan. Respawn's problem in a way spawns from something good. They are caught in the middle of solving anti-cheat, matchmaking, and foundational game balance problems that festered for way too long and should never have been like that. It's good that those things are being worked on, but it's also not content, and it's what I call the leaky bucket problem. So, your players are thirsty, and you need to bring them water. but the bucket you're going to hold that water in has got a whole bunch of holes in it. So what do? Do you bring players lots of content using your leaky bucket? Or do you stop, try to fix your bucket so it's not leaky, and then bring the players the content? Because that's the problem. If the foundations are really messed up, you can just pile content onto that sucker all the time. That's not really going to work that well. You're not going to get great bang for your buck. And this is a problem that so many games have found themselves in. One of them is Halo Infinite. Big example of the leaky bucket problem. It had humongous problems, and its developers basically decided, we need to stop shitting out content, and we need to fix up the core of our game. But it took so long to fix the bucket that, it kind of died on the vine. What that means is it's a catch-22. For the developers. It's not a catch-22 for the players because they can just boot up literally anything else. And news from Electronic Arts will only encourage players to do so. Roles were cut in Apex, whilst Star Wars Jedi was expanded into, and Apex development was somewhat externalized, or at least some roles were moved over into satellite studios in Vancouver and Wisconsin, while QA contracts were also cancelled. Sometimes pressure helps, sometimes pressure doesn't. And here I think it's the latter. I think that pressure from EA talking about the money and the line going down has actually cast a rain cloud over all of this and probably led to a lot of internal pressures that are hurting this team's ability to ship. And I suppose ironically, the person who can most impact Apex Legends going forward is the very man whose focus is now split. It's Vince Zampella. If changes made under his leadership give EA Entertainment a third leg to stand on in the form of Battlefield actually being, solidly good, then Apex and The Sims will not have to take all the pressure themselves, and maybe Apex's devs will get the time and the resources to do it right, which up until now is not what they have got. Instead, what they had was EA making them do a disastrous business model update where their players were already not particularly happy, and just set a whole disastrous bad vibes into flow. Which actually matters, vibes matter, players are humans, humans are emotional. If the vibes are better somewhere else, that's where people are going to go. Now, the vibes are salacious and spicy over in Ubisoft. Now, this is not just talking about the Assassin's Creed Shadow news. Oh no, it's talking about the family legal corporate drama that's actually driving this shit. It's fascinating, so go watch it next.